So in a recent video, someone asked me the question based on reading my brother's book, Mathieu Pajot's book on symbolism, about how we can act in the upside down world. Because Mathieu talks about how there is in the upside down world, or in the land of the foreigner, sometimes it is possible, or what happens to the hero or to the main character is that they also end up acting in a way which is somewhat upside down, or somewhat might look like it is immoral or that it is unacceptable, but ultimately ends up turning things back into normality, or ends up acting to the advantage of the hero. And the person asked me, how can we act that way in a Christian sense? And I feel like I didn't really answer very well, because I was searching for examples in my mind and I didn't have a very good answer to give. So I've been thinking about it since, and so I want to look at a few stories, especially the story of Robin Hood, and how in that sense it is possible to act in a upside down world. This is Jonathan Pajot. Welcome to the Symbolic World. So there are many examples of this idea of acting upside down in the outside world, or in the world of the stranger. The most immediate example is, of course, the story of Jack and the Beanstalk, where Jack goes up into the land, the world of the giants, and ends up acting as a thief, and then this also turns to his advantage in the end, and he ends up saving his family. But someone asked me how would a Christian act in this circumstance? And so I've been thinking about it a lot, and I mentioned this in my video with Sargon of Akkad, for those who've been listening, is the story of Robin Hood. So what I want to do is go over the story of Robin Hood and show you how it is this acting in an upside down world, and what it is that makes Robin Hood okay in the end, and makes Robin Hood different from just a regular thief. So for those who do not know the story of Robin Hood, the basic trope of the story of Robin Hood, of course there are different versions, it's based on legends, and so it's quite flexible, but the basic trope is that King Richard the Lionheart leaves for the crusade. And while he is out on the crusade, his brother, John Lackland, the prince, ends up either becoming king or being the prince and taking control. And because he is the illegitimate king, or the illegitimate ruler, then he becomes abusive towards the people. He starts to tax them extremely in a way that is actually dangerous for the society to continue. And he also ostracizes the different nobles who were faithful to King Richard. And in that context, there's the idea that Robin of Locksley, one of the aristocrats of King Richard, is exiled from his castle, or some unjust thing happens to him, and therefore he must live as an outlaw and a bandit in Sherwood Forest. So being an outlaw and a bandit, he ends up stealing from Prince John. In some of the tropes, the idea that he's actually stealing the taxes that Prince John is taking unjustly from the people, and then returning it to the people. And so he steals from the rich, gives to the poor. And so it is a problematic situation, right? And you see a similar problematic situation in the story of King David, for example, and in different stories of the kind. You see it in also the story of El Cid, those who know the story of El Cid as well, how to act when the authority is illegitimate. And here you can see is that in trying to restore things to normality, in trying to bring things back to normal, in trying to restore that which is unjustly taken from the people, Robin Hood ends up looking like a thief, and he ends up stealing from those who took unjustly from people and then returning it to the people. And in that trope, he will take on a whole slew of imagery which will relate him to this kind of weird upside down world. And so, for example, if you look at the fact that he is part of a band of merry men, that there is this idea of this kind of boisterousness and this party. It's like as if Robin Hood is in a constant party.
One of the places where you can see this hero of the Upside Down, or this playing out of this hero of the Upside Down, is in Robin Hood's relationship with Little John. Because Little John is a giant. And in the story where Robin Hood meets Little John, you can really see a play on this meeting of the monster, of the giant, and how it is that Robin Hood deals with it. And it's very fascinating to notice. And so Robin Hood meets Little John on a log, which is crossing a stream, a bridge, a summary bridge. And this, of course, is the usual role that the monster plays. The troll on the bridge, the Sphinx, which asks the riddle, the guardian of the bridge, which asks a riddle before you can cross, right? Like in the Monty Python movie. And this is, of course, the intermediary space. This is the space of chaos between identities. The space of non-identity is this space on the bridge, and it's difficult to cross it. I've talked about this in several videos, that's why it appears as a riddle. This monster presenting itself as something irregular, or the question, which is a riddle in itself, so that you can cross over into the next identity. And so, but Robin Hood is in this intermediary space. He lives in a forest. He's associated himself with a band of merry men and of robbers and of outlaws. And so when he meets Little John, the funny thing that happens as Robin Hood wants to cross the bridge, of course, the Little John challenges him to say, well, whoever knocks the other person off the bridge will be able to cross. And so they start to fight, and it's resistance, and Robin Hood gives him a massive blow on the head so that it actually starts bleeding, but then Little John knocks him off the bridge. And this is where the story ends in a different way that it usually ends, is that Robin Hood decides to call a truce. And so instead of beating the monster, instead of killing it or just answering the riddle so that he can cross, he ends up not crossing. He falls into the water and then calls a truce. And in calling a truce with this monster, he is able to gather the monster into his band of merry men and to use the power and the strength and the potential that Little John affords him.
Robin Hood actually masters the chaos, masters this space of unknown, because that is what he has to do in order to be a hero in the upside down world. And so being in the forest, outside of the city, having mastered this intermediary chaotic space, he is stealing from the authorities. And so all of it is this weird upside down thing, but it is because it is in a world where the authority is illegitimate. That's what legitimizes his actions. Now, it's a tricky situation, because how many revolutionaries have said that they are acting in a way because the authority is illegitimate? And so what makes Robin Hood different from a regular thief, or what makes Robin Hood different from a revolutionary? And the answer is actually quite straightforward and simple. The answer is that he has maintained his loyalty to King Richard. And he is not trying to take power for himself. He is not trying to set himself up as the king, and he's actually not even trying to remove Prince John from power. He is only trying to restore normality in his allegiance to King Richard, preparing the place, preparing the throne, so that when King Richard returns, Sir Robin can then, he's not Sir Robin at the time, Robin Hood can then reaffirm his allegiance to King Richard and re-enter the court of the king. And so that is how you can tell the difference. And it's a very important difference, because that is also one of the things that makes King David not just a revolutionary thug, is that although he was chosen by the prophet to replace King Saul, nonetheless, all through his life, and although King David acts as, he acts crazy, he has some weird encounters with King Saul, he seems to also act as a thief sometimes, but nonetheless, he associates himself, at least has a band of criminals or suspicious men, despite that, he never wants to kill the king, and he never himself wants to replace the king. He leaves the king in place and waits for the opportunity to present itself to him where he can now take his legitimate place. And that's the same with Robin Hood, is that he waits for the king to return so that he can then reaffirm his allegiance to the king and take back his place in the aristocracy. And if you think of different stories, you'll find several examples. I'm actually probably going to be making a video about a scene in the Dark Knight, in the Dark Knight movie with Batman and Joker, where Batman also takes on this role, exactly this role. And what makes him, Batman, also not be a revolutionary or not be the bad guy is that he accepts to take the blame on him, and he doesn't want to defend himself or become the shining knight, because he accepts to be a kind of hidden dark presence that is restoring order in an upside down world. He nonetheless accepts to be blamed for everything, and that is how he saves the day. And you can already see a hint of Christ in that kind of imagery. And so look forward to that video. Hopefully I can make it in the month of December. This month I am moving into my house. Please, God, make it so that we move into our house this month. That seems to be what is going to happen. So we're a bit of a rush. That's why I'm putting out this video on the very last day of November. Sorry, guys, to make you wait this long. But thank you for your support. Obviously, it's what makes all of this possible. I appreciate it very much. And once I'm back in my house, back in my workshop, I will be setting up a new studio, and then hopefully we can continue to ramp things up from there, and I'll have a stable ground from which to build all the projects that we have for the symbolic world. So once again, thanks for your support, guys, and I'll talk to you very soon.